Good morning, Rabbi Isa. Good morning. If everybody could please mute, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you. How's everybody doing? Good morning. Good morning. Ari Rosenstein, Shkoyach. It's great to see you. Reb Moshe Hamburg. Today's shiur sponsored by Eli Levi. Hatzlachu Parnasa Toivo Brios Levnoisai Elio Ben Simcha. This is let me explain to you. This is really, it's a big lesson. And that is, do not drive from Fishel Catering from Yerushalayim to Bet Shemesh to watch a shiur, to be at a live shiur. Because if you do, it might end up costing you big money. This is the person who drove Fishel every day from Yerushalayim to Bet Shemesh. He got stuck in the shiur one day, and he just got stuck until this very day he's in the shiur. And I think this is like the second time he's sponsored. So he actually lost money on the deal. Refuah Shlema for Tzvi Yosef ben Bela, that is Kalman from the Five Towns Rav, who has COVID. Refuah Shlema. Real quickly. Reb Simcha, Mazel Tov, another baby girl. We had Yeshua. Who delivered the baby? We don't know, but we know that Yeshua, our own Levi Friedman, drove him to the airport, and at 1:30 in the morning, as we all heard, smack in the middle of the shiur when YouTube went off, when he came on. The kids are. So tremendous Mazel Tov to all the Bnei Mishpachim. Be'ezer Hashem, in 18 years from now, we'll have Shidduchim, like the Ari Rosenstein and the Shidduch within. Hey, Ari, where's your mechutin? What's going on? I haven't seen him. It's your achrayas. He's your mechutin. You bring him back here.
All right. Call out to Kenny. Kenny, come on down.
Kenny, come on down, Kenny. We know where you are. All right. So he says like this. Kalman was in quarantine, and he wanted to talk about his siyum, the Five Towns. It was an unbelievable siyum. And the last minute, he didn't know if he's going to come, but Binyamin set up by a neighbor a place for him, even though he's in quarantine. He was away from everybody. He had the whole pool for himself because it was raining that day, and he had a special schus to say Kaddish for his father. Today's shiur is in the schus of Menachem Mendel ben Simcha, of course, and for Shlomo for his Rebbe. So he wanted to thank Binyamin for doing an unbelievable job, as I mentioned already, but I have to say it again. The cookies that were presented like Gemaras, they look like art scroll Gemaras. The bags that had the logo, coffee cups. And open up his beautiful home, our MDY home. Rebel, I think I found your partner in the merchandise area. It's not Kalman, it's Binyamin of Cedars. We have somebody else already taking care of it, but another one wouldn't hurt. Regarding Eruvin, I have to tell you, I was really scared of it, but you have made it about as warm and fuzzy as Shabbos, and I'm doing fine with it. Love Daf Yud Gimel. Must be a top 5 in Shas. Yeah, it is an amazing daf. And unfortunately, he agrees with the fellow who says that I should do a Chumash shiur. I'm not suggesting you do fit a 40-hour day into 24, but how about a 15-minute Var Torah online Zoom, YouTube, and maybe a handout before Shabbos? You can share the Torah into the family Shabbos table, Kalman 5 Towns. Beautiful. Rabbi Sai, I was debating whether I should read this email or not. It's again a toot of the horn, but nothing new. But this is a little bit of new, and but I figured this could give chizuk in a way, and that is, first of all, I get a big mazel tov. I finished Mishnah Berurah. Now the truth is, I haven't opened up Mishnah Berurah in a long time, but I made a siyum, and I will explain. Says the email from Shimi Atlas of Chicago. He's a famous singer in Chicago. Eli. 15 years ago today, my brother-in-law passed away. At his levaya in Beis Medrash Gavai of Lakewood, one of the Maspidim spoke about taking on an extra limit in his memory. The next night, I was at the Good Banquet convention here in Chicago. I had to go to accept an award for my father. His father obviously wasn't up to it. He just lost his son-in-law. As we were leaving, you were standing on a chair, giving out Mishnah Berurah Yomi calendars. Now, I have no recollection, zero. But it makes a lot of sense. Standing on a chair, that's, on a bus, on a chair, whatever. I took one, and that was my limud. That was his Kabbalah that he's going to learn extra. My brother-in-law was a big medaktik in halacha. 15 years later, I just finished my third cycle of Mishnah Berurah Amud Yomi. All in your schus. My point is, I have zero recollection, but I'm going to take a little bit of the schos that he started Mishnah Berurah and went with the Mishnah Berurah Yomi thing. And the reason why I'm reading it is because every single person could go out there and schlep another guy for Daf Yomi, and you have schosim. He finishes Shas, you finish Shas with him. This guy finished Mishnah Berurah 3 times because I, as a Meshugana, stood on a chair one day and screamed out at a Gudda convention, please take this calendar. I really have no recollection. I want to tell you about this Mishnah Berurah real quickly. Everybody has in their life like a little bit of a Hashgacha Pratis insane. This Mishnah Berurah is my Hashgacha Pratis, a crazy, crazy story that on Simchas Torah, Chav Gimel Tishrei, on Tafshin Nun Ches, I approached my cousin and I said, I have a great idea, brilliant idea. Let's learn Mishnah Berurah Yomi. Let's invent a new thing called, instead of Daf Yomi, Mishnah Berurah Yomi. He's like, okay, so let's start tomorrow. I said, no. Today's Simchas Torah, we're going to start today. We sat down, we started, we did it for like 2 weeks. It kind of blew up. 2 weeks later, he calls me up and says, Eli, you're a liar. So what? He said, because this idea is not your idea. This idea, somebody in Israel did. And they're giving out, they had calendars. I said, I don't believe it. I want to see a calendar. There were no calendars in Eretz Yisrael, in America. I called up the guy, he gave me a phone number, and this is the calendar. So this is a piece that I love. I have this in my dining room. This is the calendar. It says like this. Machzor Aleph, the first time ever of a Luach Daf Yomi. And why is it so beautiful? Because it jumps around during Yom Tovim. It goes from Yantif to Yantif. Chav Gimel Tishrei Tavshin Nun Ches. The day that I decided to do with my cousin, Harav Agoyin Rebbe Rafal Yaselevsky is a Rav in Lakewood. That's the day that a guy in Eretz Yisrael, I was mechavan to this guy in Eretz Yisrael, and because of that, my father-in-law dumped in tens of thousands of dollars into this program, Lili Nishnas, his mother, and it became very famous until, of course, Dirshu kicked him out with all their marketing and advertising and everything else. So that was like a hashgacha pratis like I've never had in my life, that I was mechavan to some guy in Eretz Yisrael, and then because of that, I finished Mishnah Berurah the first time, and because of that, Shimi Atlas made it seem, so the Kavod Shimi Atlas, I have a Mazel Tov thing for him. Even though we're doing Daf Yomi, he's doing Mishnah Berurah, but he's related to me now through Mishnah Berurah. If you guys want to be over here, this is the special Nachas corner. All right. Zog De'ele Gemara. Today's Daf Tesvav. Tesvav and Eruvin. And we are holding 4 lines down from the bottom of Yudal and Amud Beis. Hilchas Amai. Lili Nishmasi Mirasi, Rispa Mordechai. I know you're about to jump in there. I have this pachad that no one was going to jump. Hilchos Amai. How thick does a lechi have to be? 3 tfachim or a mashahu? Omelei puk chazi mayamud devar. All the way in the beginning of brachas, I got an email from somebody in Manchester. He said, "Why are you saying Shem Hashem's name? When you read a pasuk, you shouldn't say Hashem's name." I said, the Vilna Gaon says you could say Hashem's name. So he wrote me back, Puk chazi may amod devar. I read out his email then. It's a lashon of, why don't you just look what everybody else does? I don't care about the Vilna Gaon. I care about what other people do. Every place there's a mavoi. Go into a mavoi and see how thick the mavoi. Does anybody use a lechi that's 3 tefachim wide? No. Puk chazi may amod devar. Go out and see what the nation is doing. And they all use a lechi mashu. And some people say the same idea on something else. If somebody drinks water, I'm actually very thirsty. What do you do when you drink? Beautiful bracha. Everything that Kosh Baruch Hu created with His words. Now, you don't make a bracha achrayna though. If you were with us in brachas, what you do is you make a bar nefashis when? Before you drink. Bar nefashis before you drink. Alkol masha barasa. What are we pasking? Go check out what people do. What do people do? People say shakal. They don't say bar nefashis. They say bar nefashis afterwards, not before. So the same kinds of puk chazim may amadvar.
So I'm pointing out that yesterday you finished with that also. Also point out there's also a statement of Rav
Well, what? Oh, Omerle Rava Bar Chonon LaAbaye Hilchos Amayim? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I missed those words. Shkoyach. Omerle Rava Bar Rav Chonon LaAbaye Hilchos Amayim. What's the halacha when it comes to lechi? How thick? Thank you. I'm sure that was David. He jumped in, and he knows, and he knew what. Well, that was a few days ago when he asked how many lines from the bottom. Zakti Gemara Itmar. Lechi ha'oimed me'elav. By the way, if you weren't with us in Kachim, you might not know the answer. This is a famous halacha, but just in case, it was kedai to come for today. An animal is not tameh, right? An animal can never be mekabel tumah. But maybe he could. What is the case that an animal that's alive and well could be mekabel tumah? We're going to discuss it today. Itmar, lechi ha'oimed me'elav. You have a lechi that's there by itself. In other words, you didn't put it there. We'll see in a second what exactly it means. But you didn't put it there that it should fix the lechi. You see this little tree going on here? Now, you didn't put it there for a lechi. It just happened to be a tree. Abaye Omar Havi lechi, Rava Omar Le Havi lechi. So Machlokes is Abaye and Rava, and that's going to be the sugi all the way down to the bottom. So Abaye says it's a good lechi even though you didn't put it there on purpose. Rava says it's not a good lechi. So we're going to have to, the Gemara is going to go into exactly what their machlokes is. When you didn't have intent to use that as a lechi, now remember this line. The Gemara starts off the sugi saying, if you had no intent, you didn't think that it's going to be a lechi. In other words, there was another lechi somewhere else, and it fell down. So when Shabbos came in, you're using lechi A disappeared. Now you want to use a tree. Too bad. It's too late. You didn't think about it. At this point, the Gemara says impossible to think otherwise. Later on, I just want to point out, later on the Gemara says, well, perhaps not. Maybe that is a machlokes. Okay. When you do think about it, nevertheless, Rava will say it's not a good lechi. Why? You had in mind, great. Rava says it's not a lechi. Since you didn't plant it for a lechi, you have to create it as a lechi. When you put it up, it needs to be a lechi. You can't take an existing tree that's 5 years old and say, oh, from today on it's going to be a lechi, says Rava. That's not good. Is this idea also true for a mechitza, for a wall? Let's say of a sukkah. Do you have to have intent when you build the sukkah that you're building a mechitza? Let's say a tree is already there and you want to use the tree for a sukkah. Maybe it won't work because it's already there. You have to create it as a mechitza. Tashma. We have a Mefurish Mishnah that talks about a sukkah and a tree. If somebody makes a sukkah between trees, he uses the trees as his wall. So you see, you don't have to have intent to make the mechitza of a sukkah. Even if it just happens to be there, you're in a forest, you just put schach on top, and you use the barks of a tree as your wall. It's not a problem. Because yes, it's not a good raya. Perhaps over here he had intent. When he planted it, he says, I want these trees to be my sukkah. Right. The top of the leaves of a tree cannot be your schach if they're connected to the ground. We're talking about the walls. Okay. When we get to sukkah, we'll see. You have to build it. It can't be nadbach. It can't be this. Certain sukkahs that are not good, you have to build it. Even the actual walls, l'shem schach, l'shem sukkah maybe. So what's the big chiddush? Now the same, a great chiddush. Maybe you're going to come to cut off a branch on Shabbos, on Yontif. Kamash Malon, we're not concerned. That's the chiddush. It's a different side chiddush. The fact that I can use a tree that I didn't plant, l'shem sukkah, that's not a chiddush. I mean, because he did plant it l'shem sukkah. Toshma. Another right. Going back to the halacha of pasi birois. Not here today. Wow. Okay, not here. Not here, not here. I guess I didn't print it. Anyway, let's see. No. Nishda. Pasi birois. The halacha that we discussed a few times already, and that is you can look in Rashi, there's a nice little picture. You have a pit in the middle of the Rosh Hashanah, and you make these L-shaped brackets around the pit. Each side, each bracket is 1 amma by 1 amma. Now, what if the bracket consists of a tree? What are you showing me, Daron? The picture of Pasi birois? Yeah, but I had a picture. I printed out another picture of the tree, and it's made out of kinim, chitzim. Okay, it's on my computer. I think Yosef Biliak could show it to you guys. Maybe somebody could screen share it. Yosef Biliak should have it, because it is in my system. I just didn't print it out. So, if one of them is made out of a tree, and you could carve into the tree a 1 by 1 amma. So it's a good diumad. Diumad is 2. Diumad, 2 amudim. Now, where did the tree come from? The tree was there before. Talking about that I planted a tree for a diumad. I knew Klal Yisrael was going to need this pit of water. I planted a tree to have a real sturdy diumad. So if you planted it for a diumad, so of course it's a good diumad. The other halacha, not the tree. That is, I can make a diumad out of these guys. I put 5 of these, 1 in the corner, 1 3 tfachim away from it, another 1 3 tfachim away. Now I have 6 tfachim because of lavud. I can take small pieces, even though there's a lot more ear than structure. Nevertheless, it's a good diumad because I use the concept of lavud and I bridge the gap, and I built a 1 amma wall with a bunch of sticks that are 3 tfachim away from each other. That's a chiddush. Even though there's a lot of ear, it's still considered a wall. Abai asked Rabbi this exact question, and so you see, it's not so pashut. I need a chiddush. Tashma ilona meisach al haaretz. You have, let's say, a willow tree. It gives a lot of shade on the ground, and you could go underneath it. And this is unique, this tree, that the branches go all the way down to the ground. Not so much in this picture, but a nice, serious willow tree will do that. So can you use it? Again, the idea of you don't want goats and cats or whatever animals to go underneath. So if it could come all the way down to within 3 tefachim of the ground, it gives you protection from other animals, and therefore everything underneath the tree is like a Rosh Hashanah. I could carry underneath that tree. But I didn't create the tree to carry. It just happened to be here. Again, same idea. We have no proof. Again, we see this over and over and over. When the Gemara says, he planted, it doesn't mean he planted. We know for sure that he planted. We don't have 100% proof. It could be he planted it for it. It could be that's what the Mishnah is talking about. It could be the Mishnah is not talking about it. But you don't have, when you want to bring proof from me, you don't have proof. I will put you in I will say, I'll be doichik and say, he planted it for that. So you don't have a strong proof. So then you should be able to carry everywhere. If you planted it for yourself, carry everywhere. Why do I only have 2 saw worth? Says the Gemara, because this tree it's there for outside of it. You're there to protect the fields. And therefore, you only have up to 2 saw. Now, there's a beautiful Rashi here. Rashi, smack in the middle of the page. Go all the way to the end of Rashi, the last line. Says Rashi, the lavadirahu. Why is it not a house? The al karcha darsham. Says Rashi Yisoid. Anytime you live somewhere and you don't want to be there, you want out, you don't want to watch your fields, you want to go home to your nice comfortable bed. So it's not a dira. That's how Rashi explains this sugya. So I don't want to be under the tree. I want to be home with my family. I'm under the tree because I have no choice. The sun is hitting me, I'm there. Very interesting Rashi. Therefore, all I get is 2 sa. But if I go back to my mansion, and my mansion is 45 sa, you can carry anywhere you want in your mansion because that's your real house. A tree is not your real house. And Rashi describes what is real, what is not real. When you want out, then it's not real. When you're on a camping trip, and every minute you want to go home because it's so uncomfortable, then that tent is not your house. Says the Gemara. Toshma, Shavas Betel, Dr. Epstein knows what I'm talking about. The Shavas Betel Shugavoya Asora, Vuma Arba Amos Va Beisosain. Now, another pshat. You're Avi schlepped him on a camping trip. You don't take Dr. Epstein on a camping trip, right, Doc? Schleps him out there. He couldn't wait to get home. That was not his dira. That was not his grandchildren's dira, yeah, but not his dira. Shavas Betel Shugavoya Asora Vuma Arba Amos Va Beisosain.
Ellie, you should have seen him. He was having a great time.
It's not what he told me behind your back. Forgetting he lives in my building. He told me the whole deal. He wanted a shower, his bathroom. What do you bring him to a place with the outhouse? Please. This guy's from Skokie, Illinois. I don't even know where he's from. He lived the last few years in Skokie. Where were you born in Skokie? Where were you born? I don't even know. Okay.
He's from the south side of Chicago.
Is he really? I don't believe it. All right. Then outhouse is fine for him. Says the Gemara, Shavas Betel Shugavaya Asara Vuma Arba Amos Va Beisosain. So a guy was shoyves. He was kind of shvisa. His place of living for Shabbos was on a mound. Now, was a mound of Rosh Hashanah? Yes, because we have to invoke the idea of good asik mechitzta. You're on top of this guy, you're over here, so you take the walls and you shoot them upwards. They're as if they go around you, and now you have walls that create a Rosh Hashanah. And the opposite if you're in the groom arba amois va beisosain. So I just made this real quickly. This is a very rudimentary, with no time left on the clock. Basically, a human being has a red box. He gets 4 amas. Okay? If you were not koine shvisa, you happen to be walking Erev Shabbos, you realize that it's sundown, you get to walk 8 feet in every direction, and that's it. Dalet amas, you're stuck. You are a dalet amas. But if you are in a place like a mound or in a hole or in a field that you didn't plant everywhere, there's wheat everywhere around you, but it's flat surface, you get that whole area, whatever that area is, up to 2 sa. That's the chiddush here. I could create a house by sitting on a mound. I could create a house by being in a pit. So typically you'd get the red, now you get the entire blue. Beisosain. Okay. V'kom ktsura, where the wheat is chopped down, but you have all the wheat around you. Mahalach is kula, you can walk the whole thing. V'choitzala al paimama, v'chutzala, and out of it al paimam. So here's a case that happened by itself. Maybe the wheat, that's how you planted it. Okay. Wheat, fine. They're there from Sheshis Mei Bereshis. You didn't create a mountain. You didn't create a hole in the ground. Ella, you're right. A mechitza that happened on its own is considered a mechitza. Ki pligi b'lechi. The whole argument is only regarding a lechi. Do you have to create it? Do you have to make it? Or even it was there from before, it's considered a lechi like a baya. By the way, there are 6 places in Shas that the halach is like a baya. Ya'al kegam. The lamed stands for lechi. This sugya right here. Halach is like a baya. So if we can figure out what a baya says, then we know what the halach is. Abaya says, and Tosfos explains and sticks in very nicely, that Abaya holds that a kaira is also a mechitza. Believe it or not. The kaira, we had a big suffix, kaira is a mechitza, hecker. The kaira that's on top of the mov is also mechitza. So certainly a lechi is much more of a mechitza than a kaira. Because there was a Manda Omer we had in Daf Beis that says only a lechi is a mechitza, but not a kaira. But if you say that a kaira is a mechitza, so of course a lechi is a mechitza. Kipligi, We just established that when it comes to a sukkah, a mechitza that was created on its own from Sheshis and Bereshis, a mountain is a mechitza. So since a lechi is a mechitza, it can be created on its own. Again, on Daf Beis, Rava said specifically, I hold both a lechi and a kaira are not a mechitza, they are a heker. So if you made it with your own hands, you created it, then it is something that will be noticeable. And if it was just there, it just popped up by itself, that's not a heker. Toshma, avni geder, hayotis min hagoder. So, basically a jagged edge, where you're in the middle of building, it looks like you want to close this off one day when you have more money, and that's why you did it. So what does that mean? That means that you did not create a lechi. The reason why it's jagged is because you intend on closing it off tomorrow. If you didn't want to close it off, you would have made a straight edge. So according to Rava, this should not be a good lechi because it wasn't created for a lechi. If there's less than 3 tefachim between each brick, but if there's more than 3, you don't say lavod, you need another lechi. But once again, it happened by itself. Says the Gemara, you like that design. That's how you decided to build it. You built it like that for a lechi. So if you build it like that, what's the chiddush? So it can't have a little jagged to it. But at the end of the day, you do have intent to continue building, and therefore you didn't want it to be a lechi. Toshma. So we had this on Daf. I don't remember, Zay, Yud, somewhere. Basically, we had 2 cases there. I think I showed it to you in the book. I think I might have been on vacation then. If you look over here, the wall goes in. It's indented. And when you're standing in the mavo, you don't see that indent. So that is shava b'fnim, v'nira b'chutz. You could see a lechi sort of shape on the outside. The next case is that it's nira b'fnim. You see this bump over here. For some reason, they changed the pictures up. The PDF file online has this picture. In my Gemara, it's a completely different picture. I guess they regretted the picture they put in my Gemara. I don't know. I think I mentioned it back then as well. In other words, when I'm walking down the Rosh Hashanah, everything is nice and smooth. You don't see a lechi at all. The lechi is inside. That should be great, right? Because the lechi is for the people inside the Mavi. And the people inside the Mavi notice it. The people walking down the Rosh Hashanah, I don't care about them. So, nira b'chutz v'shav v'fnim, the Tani Rebbe Chia, the wall is indented. Whether you see it only from the outside, but you don't see it from the inside. Whether you see it from the inside and not from the outside, it's a great lechi. But you didn't create the wall for that. It just happened by itself. Who told you? Maybe the whole case is because he made it on purpose. He made a special design. Here in Eretz Yisrael, you see people make nice walls in front of their house, and they have little indentations in the wall to put their menorah. They think about these things. People are going to make a lechi in their wall. But what's the chiddush? And so every step of the way, what's the chiddush? Each one has a chiddush. If I could see the lechi from outside, but I don't see it inside, what good is it? How does it help me? How am I going to stop carrying? Nevertheless, it's a good lechi. That's a tremendous chiddush. Toshma, the Rav Abi Yosef Ahu Mavaya says this Gemara story. Rav was sitting in a mavi. Abi Yosef Rav Huna Kamei. Rav Huna was there. Amalei Shamei, and Rav tells the Shamish, Zil Aisli Kuzdamai, go please get me a cup of water. Ad the Asa Nofalech, until the Shamish came back with the nice cold water with ice. Lechi falls down. Achvili biyodei. So Rav shows the Talmud. He goes, hey, stop. Don't walk. Come aduchte. He stood straight. He stood still. Every time I see this come aduchte, I have to say the story, even though we're doing Chazos Shiur. I think I might have said it already in Brachas, but when I learned the Pesach, there's a real big tzaddik there in the yeshiva, and we noticed after Shabbos Friday night meal, we noticed that he's standing by the bookshelf and he's not moving. And eventually, like after an hour, we went over to him. What's going on? He says, listen, I put my elbow on a shelf, and then I put my fist up, and I raised the shelf a little bit. And now the shelf is resting on my hand, and if I take my hand out, the shelf is going to fall down, and I'm over on muktzah. And we're like, oh, you got to be kidding. No. So what are you going to do? You're going to stand there all night? Yeah, I'm going to stand there all night. And it became a whole emergency, and we're running, and we're opening Shulchan Aruch, and Mishnah Berurah, and this lamdan and that lamdan, and we can't convince him. So we said we have to go to the Rosh Shiva. We got to wake the Rosh Shiva, Rameir Stern in Passaic, and he lived far away. 12 o'clock in the morning, we got to wake him up. This guy's going to faint there. I'm not going to mention his name. Came one of my friends, said, great idea. Listen, let's take shifts. I put my hand in for an hour, you go to sleep. The next guy, you come up, you wake up, you put your hand in. Oh, the guy, after literally being there for 2 hours, it's fine. So my friend puts his hand in, and this guy takes his hand out, and my friend goes, ooh, oh, wow, it fell. Oh, sorry. He was so mad. Kids, all right. So Rav says, stand still. So the guy's there with a cup like this, standing like a klutz. There's no Eruv. There's no lechi. You just stand there. What happened exactly? I don't know. There's no lechi. I don't know. Nachman, even this story you can't put in. These are all stories you can't put. They're not for print. Says Rav Huna, wait a minute. What's the big deal? There's a palm tree right here. That should serve as your lechi. Omar, Domi Haimi Rabbanon Kamandeli Parshi Inchim Shmaita. Rav Huna, I'm sorry, it looks like you don't know how to learn. Nobody wanted this lechi yesterday, and we just started the whole sugya that if you had no idea that you're going to use this tree, for sure, according to everybody, it's not a good lechi. And this tree was not supposed to be the lechi. We had a lechi. The lechi fell down. Says the Gemara, tremendous raya, Taima Delay Samchinon. Hosamchinon have a lechi. It seems like if you would have thought about using the tree, it's a great lechi. Halacha like a baya, boom, great raya. Says the Gemara, wait a minute, maybe we could flip it around. Let's rethink this. You came up, you were so sure in the beginning of the sugya that if you didn't think about it before Shabbos, the kula alma, it's not a good lechi. Maybe not. Maybe Abai is so strong in what he says, even if you never thought about, like in Rav's case, that you didn't think about it, Abaya holds, you could use the tree. And Rav says, do not use it. The halacha is not like Abaya. So this will be exact opposite, a raya against Abaya. We're coming with the hanacha that it's pasha that you can't use this tree because you never thought about it. Maybe not. Maybe you could. Maybe Abaya holds, you could use the tree. That's impossible. Do barko, there's a porch. The Havabe Bar Chavu. It was in the place for Bar Chavu. So the porch, I don't have a picture. I took a picture of it from my Mesifta, and the Mesifta they have a picture, but not in the book. It's basically a porch that has a beam that goes into the mavui. So this beam that's holding up a porch is not for a lechi, it's to hold up a porch. So that had a big machlokes Abai and Rava. For how long? All the years. In other words, all the years means that I thought about it before Shabbos. I had the opportunity to think about it because this is going on for years. Nevertheless, that's where the machlokes is. That's where Rava says, do not use it, even if you know about it. Says the Mishnah, and so the halacha is like Abaya. That if I think about it, even though I didn't put it there, bedafka, I didn't plant it, I didn't create it for the lechi, it's still a good lechi. Biyal kigam, we paskin like Abaya. Says the Mishnah, I can make a lechi out of, I love this picture, although it's not correct for this. I can take a donkey and use it. Now this is for later on in the Gemara where the donkey dies. That's why we say you shouldn't use something that's alive. But take a live animal and use it as my lechi. Rameir says no. And this is what I was saying, that halacha, there's one halacha. An animal cannot be mikabel tumah, but if the animal is the cover of a grave, then even if the animal is alive, the animal is mikabel tumah, it's a one-time halacha. A cover of a grave, goylol. What about if the animal picks himself up and walks away from the grave? Machlokes Rishonim. The Rambam and Rashi. The Rambam holds that once the animal leaves the grave, he's no longer tameh, and Rashi says once he became tameh, he remains tameh for the rest of his life. So, returning to Daf Tesvav Amud Beis, sponsored by Asher Emer, Lili Nishmas Rosa Bas Binyamin, and he says, Rabbi Isai should try to make it a great day. If you say it, I guess it works. And by Dr. Alan Listhouse. Lilin Nishmas Mordechai Yosef ben Aaron. Remeir says that an animal is not tamei even if he's a cover of a grave. And you could take an animal and write a wife a get on its horn, on whatever, and give the animal like that to your wife and your yaitza. Rabbi Yossi, or his wife, not your wife. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Paisel, and Rabbi Aglili says, no good. If something's alive, do not make it a wall for your sukkah. Don't use it for lechi. And don't use it for your pasi birois. And not the cover for a grave. You can't write a get on it. My time there, Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Why can't you write a get on an animal? The Sanya Sefer. Sefer is a document. So it has to be on a Sefer, on klaf, on parchment. Eli Sefer, Minay L'Rav is called over. So how do I know to include other things other than parchment? Maybe on a piece of wood, something else. You should write it a get, mikal makam on anything, but not on an animal. So why does he sefer? You cannot write a get on something that, just like a book, a sefer, doesn't have life to it, and it's not food. So don't go to your wife and say, oh, happy birthday, and give her a nice birthday cake, but on the cake you inscribe the whole get, Shalom Aleichem, and she takes a look at it and she, whatever. Such a good, finally, you got me a birthday cake. Yeah, finally. And she takes one look. So if it's food, no good. If it has ruach chayim, it's a live dog, no good. Av kol davar, I finally bought you a puppy. Av kol davar shein beruach chayim ve'eino oichel. You can't do it on something that's alive and it's food. Rabbana miksiv basefer, that you're writing it in a book. Sefer ksiv. You're saying over a story. You're writing a get. You're writing a document. It's not in the book, it's the story, the get. So what do Rabbanon learn from the words of Chasavla? Now Taisa points out, we just said yesterday, Chasavla, Lishma, you have to write Lishma. Well, Taisa says, well, there's two psukim. That I don't need, so what do I do with the second one? I would think that you could divorce a woman with money. Why? I guess that's all divorces today, right? It's all about money. You give them money, alimony. But no, you think that the actual divorce is chal. What creates the divorce? What's the kinyan of the divorce? Money. Because you're kind of a woman with money, you do kedushin with money, so maybe gerushin was with money. There's a hekesh between the two. Since he uses up the words already, how does he know this idea that you cannot divorce with money? You shouldn't divorce with money. You can't divorce a woman with anything but the sefer, a document. Well, they need it for the famous halacha that it has to be krisus. It has to be a complete severance. I think that's the word. You have to sever the marriage completely, 100%. In other words, the Gestanya. If somebody divorces his wife on a condition, any condition that lasts forever, that's not a severance. In other words, there's still an attachment. They're still attached by the condition. You shouldn't go to your father's house. Now, why is that la'ilam? The father's probably going to die before her, so it's not going to last forever. No, what do you say? If I say la'ilam, I can't drink wine forever, great. That understands forever. But the father might die. Says Taisvis, you're right. Therefore, we're not talking about the father. We're talking about the father's house. You can't go to the father's house forever. But if she would say, if the condition would be dependent on somebody's life, that might be a good get, because they might die before. But if you limit it to amount of time, then it's a good get. Now, how do I know this halacha? Because it says sefer krisus. It has to be done by kairos bein leveno. That's the sever. Rabbi Saglili, and how does he know what he already uses up sefer krisus? Nafkalei mikaris krisus. The word krisus actually contains two words, kares, and us. It should say sefer kares. Why does it say krisus? So I learned two things from the one word. Rabbanan, kares krisus le'darshi. I don't like that drasha. Like some of you were thinking, well, what kind of drasha is that? So Rabbanan also don't like that. Says the Mishnah, Shayara shechansa bebika bekifu kli behema. Oh, we have a picture of a goylo. If you want to know what goylo kever looks like, here's an animal over a grave. In case here's a dead guy right over here. So, we have a shayara. They're traveling, but they need a stop. They need to make a camp. So what do? They take off the saddles, they take off all the stuff off the animal, and they do an enclosure. Says the Mishnah, so now that's an enclosed area, so you can carry in there. You have to make sure that the saddles and everything add up to 10 tfachim. Make sure that there's at least, we'll see in the Gemara, but at least, let's call it, there shouldn't be openings that are 51%. You shouldn't have more open than closed. Kol pirza shike eser amois muteres. We had this halacha a few times already. That any opening in a chatz or in a mavoi that up to 10 is okay. It doesn't ruin it. Bnei shike pesach, we consider it an opening. Yes, but if it's more than 10, asur. If it's more than 10 amois, then it's not an opening anymore. Then it's a breach in your chatzar, and you don't have a closed chatzar. Itmar. What about paritz kaimet? 50-50. What's the halacha on 50-50? Not 51% closed, but 50% closed. Paritz kaimet. Rav Papa Amar mutter, and that's the halacha. Rav Papa says it's okay, it's considered a chatzar. Rav Huna berei Rav Yishua Amar also, you need 51%. 50 is not enough. Rav Papa Amar mutter, hachi agmir rachman al Moshe. That's exactly what Akash Baruch told Moshe Rabbeinu. Loi tifretz ruba. Do not breach the majority. But if it's not the majority, if it's only 50%, you're okay. Rav Huna berei Rav Yishua Amar also, hachi agmir rachman al Moshe. Akash Baruch told Moshe Rabbeinu, gedai ruba. You have to make sure most of it is closed up. Tanan. What about our Mishnah? If you medak in the words, it says the openings shouldn't be more than the actual standing. In other words, but if it's not more, if it's exactly 50-50, it's perfect. That's why we're passing like Rav Papa. It's a great raya from the Mishnah. If it's 50-50, it's a good wall. Says Gemara, maybe I'll push it off. Like Tema hake binyan mutter, ela ema im binyan yaser ela pirsa mutter. Okay, it's a little bit of a doichak. I'll say maybe it means if the building is more than the opening, then it's okay. But if it's 50-50, not. Avke binyan mai aser. So what are you telling me? That if it's 50-50, it's aser. Yachi listen, ela you pierces kibinyan. So the wording in the Mishnah is off. If you want to say that 50-50 is aser, so say 50-50 is aser. Pirtzes kibinyan is aser. Why do you tell me lo you yoiser? Lo you pierce you say right. Don't say more. Say equal. If it's equal, then it's aser. So the Gemara kasha. Okay, that's a good kasha. Kasha is usually not the biggest kasha in the world. It's not a tiyufta. It's a kasha. Okay. Tashma. If a person uses schach, that's puzzle, metal rods, or metal pieces from his bed, if the schach that's kosher is exactly like them, kosher. So what do you see? That if 50% of the kosher schach is kosher, so 50% of the wall is kosher. You don't need 51%. The schach is more. Why? Because I have more area that I can take it in and out. In and out means typically when you want to be able to pull something out, you have to leave a little bit of a gap of air, so therefore it's more. But says the Gemara, you can make it exactly 50-50. No, that's not the normal way to do it. So very simple. First of all, here's the first picture. Here, the green represents pasul schach. This is regular schach. So if it's 50-50, kosher. Now, Rava says very simple. Rava says that your schach runs shasi, so your pasul is going to run erev. But look what happens. How does this erev sit? It's going to fall down. Obviously, it's above. If you look over here, you see this red line? Your good schach is underneath the bad schach. It's holding this up right over here. This area is on top of your good schach. Says the Gemara. And that's why it's more. Fine, we'll stop right over here, Rabbi Isai. Have a wonderful Geschmack day. Shema Elois, Mama Kim Kosich Adonai. Shema B'Kol Zog Shema Zog Adonai. Shema Yadon Miyamoid. Kim Chaz L'Chol Leman Tivorei. Yizan L'Gusel L'Mshid V'Rei Chalti. Shalim Shemim L'Abayim Shemim L'Abayim. Echad Yisrael Adonai Gimel Echad V'Abayim V'Fidus. V'Evdei Yisrael Mikol HaBen Yisrael V'Achen Gabet Yisrael Tzalem V'Shavir. Cholim Dibei Meyom Yishom Mokim Yachim Alim Yisrael Yisrael V'Achen Shtabar Zaman Kori V'Nimar Amen. Rabbi Isai, I might have misspoken. The green is the kosher. That's why the green is above and more than the non-kosher. This is the non-kosher. Let's go back over here. The green is kosher. This is non-kosher. The reason why this sukkah is good is because you have more schach than non-kosher, because even though they're equal, but they have to overlap. It overlaps in the non-kosher, and this provides the shade, and therefore this is kosher. Gewaldige day, everybody. Oh, we got somebody from Australia, Rav Dov, gewaldig. Let's see if we could unmute. No. How about now? Moti! How's everything going, Moti? Good day, Rab Bernard. Yeshua, I thought you're not going to make it today. Wow. Mazel tov, Rabbi Yeshua.
Eli, that sugya of creases comes out. I thought you were going to say how many times in Shas it comes out. It's a lot of times in Shas, no?
Which one?
The sugya of creases and the sefer and not being on a time.
Yeah, sefer creases. Yeah, for sure. At least in Gittin Kedusha, no? Where do you know it from? Is it in Sukkah?
No, it comes up a lot of places. I don't think it's...
Yeah.
Someone sent me the article of you from Mishpacha magazine.
The one with the lion?
No, I didn't see. It was just the text of it. The whole the interview with Mishpacha magazine.
You missed the main point. The main point was the picture of me and a lion.
I didn't see.
I sent them like 5 pictures, me learning, and they threw it all out and they put it. I wanted to show a picture of the shear. Instead, they put a picture of a lion. I told them it should be small, but you know how they do it. Yeah, so it was a good article.
It's great. Good to hear a bit about your background, your history, who you are.
Shkoyach. Yeah.
Lawrence can't unmute.
Who's on mute?
Lawrence Spiegelman, he can't unmute.
You have to leave and then come back.
Really?
And neither can Rausner.
Oh, mate, you know what happened last night? Last night for the first 10 minutes of Shiur, we couldn't, no one was muted, they were muting themselves, and new people didn't know, and it was a balagan. And finally when Gary came on, I yelled at him a little bit. I said, what's going on here? You know, the Shiur starts at 9:15. So he said he quits. I said, you're fired, but just give me all the, I think he took it seriously. That's why he didn't come. Oh no, he's on. Is he on? Let's see. Gary, are you on? I can't unmute him. What's going on here? I think he took away my privileges, all my privileges.
Because you fired him.
He's a disgruntled employee.
What are you without today? Your motto today.
No, I said in the beginning.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, you missed it. What? What does he say?
I don't know. It seems a number of people can't unmute.
Gary. Take care, Lauren Spiegelman. Sorry you can't unmute. I try. Let me see if I can do it one more time.
Diamond Khan also. Rosner.
How about now? Try now. No? We'll try to fit.
No. I'm unmuted. Don't can't unmute. I don't know who else.
Happy shipping is $6.99.
Halavai shipping will be $6.99 for us in Israel. Halavai.
Have a great day, you too. Steve, Eli, fantastic share, as usual.
So listen, I can't take your compliments anymore.
Okay.
If you give me one, if one share you say, listen, Eli, this was not from your best shiurim, then the rest will be okay. But if you say the same thing every day, tell me it's a great share. So you're just you're a nice, polite man. It doesn't mean that it's a good share. So that's why from now on I'm not. I'll take it, but I'm not. It's not going to mean that much to me. You have to be critical once in a while. No?
Okay, I like the stuff that was on the
What? What'd you say?
I like the stuff
If
that
you
was
want
on
me
the
to, I'll find something bad to say.
There's plenty. Trust me. You're not looking. David, help him out. David. What?
What's considered a shesi? What's considered Eruv in the red and green?
Oh, yeah. It's not a piece of fabric that there's one string that's thicker than the other. It just. Oh, you mean what is it literally?
No,
Shesi, Erev.
I always assume it means going this way and that way. The lav that for shesi is horizontal.
Right. It doesn't.
Or vice versa. Which one's which?
It doesn't really matter. I don't think it matters halachically. They're interchangeable. It happens to be that on a loom, it's always the chassis is always one way and the Erev is always the other. There's the permanent string and the one that goes back and forth. One is thicker than the other. But over here, this is Erev. The green, the schach is Erev, and this is chassis. I don't think it has to be that direction. I think you can flip it over and say this is chassis, that's Erev. I don't think that makes sense. Let me turn off YouTube.
We're still being recorded. Okay.